Welcome to the Cheating Wife Stories channel. Pete Lowe adjusted his navy blue coveralls and pushed his cleaning cart past the glass-walled offices of Tech Solutions Incorporated. The wheels squeaked slightly. He had meant to oil them, but hadn't gotten around to it. 15 years of maintaining these halls had taught him every corner, every schedule, and every back of every head as most people hurried past without a glance. "Morning, Mr. Lowe." A young programmer named David waved as he rushed by with his laptop under his arm. "Morning, David," he replied. "Don't forget your coffee mug in the conference room again," Pete called after him. The young man's hand flew to his forehead in an "oh right" gesture as he changed direction. These small interactions peppered Pete's days. He knew who stayed the latest, who came in the earliest, and whose trash bins needed extra attention after their Friday takeout ritual. To them, he was just Pete, the maintenance supervisor, reliable, invisible, part of the building's machinery. They had no idea about the other machinery humming away in his home office. His phone buzzed with another price alert. Bitcoin had crossed $45,000. Pete allowed himself a small smile as he mechanically wiped down the break room counters. His 10,000 DTC had been a wild gamble back in 2010 when each coin cost only pennies. Now, wasting your time on that internet money again. The memory of Tanya's dismissive voice from years ago echoed in his mind. Tanya had been beautifying their modest house for a showing that day. Her real estate agent's smile was firmly in place. "It's called cryptocurrency, honey," she had said, cutting him off with an eye roll. Soon, the break room door opened, snapping Pete back to the present. Sarah from accounting entered with her phone pressed to her ear, saying, "No, Mom, you don't understand. Private school tuition has gone up again." Her cheeks flushed as she grabbed her yogurt from the fridge and hurried out. Pete's thoughts then drifted to his own twins. That morning, 16-year-old Jamie had staged another protest about their embarrassing car. Madison's parents had gotten her a Tesla for her birthday, but Jamie had complained while slumping against the kitchen counter. Meanwhile, her twin, Jenny, said, "At least we have a car." Jamie had stormed out, leaving her breakfast untouched. "Don't worry about it, Dad," Jenny added. But Pete noticed the slight downturn in her mouth and the way her eyes lingered on her worn backpack. The twins were good kids, though Tanya's materialistic outlook had rubbed off on them. Pete emptied another trash bin while thinking about the digital fortune in his encrypted wallet. One transaction could change everything. Private schools, luxury cars, a mansion in the hills, all were possible, but something held him back. His phone buzzed again with a message from Wilson Moses, his fellow maintenance worker. "Break room. Need to talk." Pete finished his rounds and headed to their usual corner table. Wilson was already there, a coffee cup warming his weathered hands. "You see the new cars in the executive lot?" he asked. Hard to miss. 3 new Teslas had appeared that week following the latest round of promotions. "Tanya's been showing properties in that area," Wilson said carefully. "Luxury listings." Sarah in accounting mentioned billboards near Malibu. Pete nodded slowly. "Business is good for her." Wilson leaned forward and said, "I've known you 15 years. Something's up with her. Those late nights at the office. Real estate is demanding." Pete's voice remained neutral as his hand tightened around his coffee cup. "She's been showing the new CEO properties. Philip Lindsay," Wilson observed. "Lots of private viewings," he added, according to his cousin at the agency. Pete's phone buzzed a third time with a Bitcoin price alert. $46,000. His hidden fortune grew even as his marriage crumbled. The irony wasn't lost on him, and he thought about how the twins had changed too. Wilson pressed on. "Jenny used to volunteer with my Maria at the animal shelter. Now she's always at study groups with those Malibu prep kids. They're just teenagers, and everything changes. Though not everything." Wilson's dark eyes held concern. "You're still the same stand-up guy I met on your first day. The kind who helped me fix my mom's plumbing without asking for a dime. You deserve better than this." Pete began gathering his empty cup when Wilson caught his arm. I saw her car at the Lindsay property yesterday, the big one on Ocean View. It was there for hours. A muscle ticked in Pete's jaw, but he stayed steady. He said, "Thanks for the coffee, Wilson." Back in the hallway, Pete's phone lit up with a text from Dustin Christian, his crypto-savvy lawyer. Documents ready for review. Meeting still on for Thursday. Pete typed a quick confirmation. In his wallet, an old receipt held the seed phrase to his Bitcoin fortune, written in careful pencil strokes. He had been adding documentation for months. Bank statements, credit card bills, and timestamps. Every floor he buffed, every bin he emptied, and every greeting he offered was part of the facade. The invisible man was gathering invisible evidence and protecting an invisible fortune as his cart squeaked down another pristine hallway. Another price alert. Another piece of his carefully constructed reality shifted. The annual Tech Solutions Christmas party transformed the sterile office into a glittering reminder of corporate hierarchy. Pete supervised the maintenance team's decoration efforts from a discreet corner, noting how the executive circle naturally gravitated toward the premium bar, while junior employees clustered around the punch bowl. The new CEO sure knew how to make an entrance. Wilson muttered as he appeared at Pete's side with 2 cups of punch. Philip Lindsay had just arrived, his 6'2" frame wrapped in a Tom Ford suit. The man moved through the crowd with practiced ease, leaving a wake of impressed whispers and eager smiles. "Tanya's here," Wilson added carefully. Pete didn't need the warning as his wife walked in wearing a red dress. She had not shopped at their usual mall, and was working the room like the skilled real estate agent she was, though her orbit seemed to be shrinking as she drew closer to Lindsay. Suddenly, Jamie's voice startled them. "Mom looks amazing." Pete's daughter had insisted on attending, claiming she was old enough for corporate events. She stood in a new dress Pete didn't remember buying. Her eyes were fixed on the glittering executives. "Why didn't you ever try for a promotion, Dad? We could be over there instead," she exclaimed before Pete could respond. Jenny appeared and said, "I found the dessert table. They have those little chocolate treats you like, Dad." Pete watched Jamie drift away, drawn to a group of executives' children. "You don't have to stay here with me," Jenny said. "I like it here," she added with a genuine smile, though her eyes tracked her twin's movement. Jamie might be right. You're smart enough to be more than a maintenance supervisor. If only they knew. Pete's phone buzzed in his pocket with another crypto alert. He had set up sophisticated monitoring systems for his digital fortune, tracking market movements across multiple exchanges. The same meticulous attention to detail that kept Tech Solutions running smoothly had made him a silent crypto millionaire. Across the room, Philip Lindsay had found Tanya, and Pete watched their interaction carefully. He noted the slight lean in Lindsay's posture, the way Tanya's laugh carried a bit louder than necessary, and the deliberate brush of hands as they reached for drinks simultaneously. "I got some data you might want to see," Wilson said. "On property viewings." "Thursday," Pete responded quietly. After his shift, the party continued its predictable pattern. Jenny eventually wandered off to rescue her sister from an awkward conversation with an executive's son. Tanya remained in Lindsay's orbit as their discussion about real estate markets continued, fooling no one who cared to look closely. Later that week, Wilson's data painted a clear picture. Multiple private viewings of luxury properties occurred always after traditional business hours. The same 2 cars appeared in visitor logs, and lunch meetings stretched into dinner time. Wilson spread printed photos on his kitchen table. "She's there at least 3 times a week now," he said. Pete studied the images, his wife's car parked beside Lindsay's Tesla, with timestamps telling their own story. The twins attended different study groups at various addresses every time, Wilson confirmed, but never where they claimed to be. Pete's phone lit up with a message from Dustin Christian. "Bitcoin moving again. Need to discuss strategy for protecting assets pre-filing." Wilson noticed his friend's expression and asked, "You've got someone helping you?" Pete replied, "A lawyer," while gathering the photos. The lawyer specialized in digital assets. Wilson's confusion was evident as Pete said, "What aren't you telling me?" But Pete was already heading for the door. "Thanks for this, Wilson. I need to make some calls," he said. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. Tanya worked later and later, and the twins' study groups multiplied. Pete maintained his routine at Tech Solutions, invisible as ever, while his lawyer built a careful case. During a secure video call, Dustin reported, "Your wife's phone pinged from the Malibu property again. 3 hours this time, and the Bitcoin wallet is secured through smart contracts. She'd need to prove knowledge of crypto from before 2010 to access it." Pete ended the call and stared at his home office setup. Though the mining rigs were long gone, he could still hear their hum in his memory. Back then, Tanya had complained about the high electricity bills, the heat they generated, and the waste of time and money. "I don't understand you," she had said countless times. "Why can't you focus on real opportunities?" Real opportunities like Philip Lindsay, apparently. Pete's monitoring systems now tracked every late night, every missed dinner, and every suspicious credit card charge to build his lawyer's case. The twins were changing too. Jamie's social media posts featured increasingly expensive clothes and accessories that Pete knew he hadn't bought, while Jenny's grades began to slip as her once passionate discussions about college plans faded. "They're just busy with school." Tanya dismissed his concerns over a rare family dinner. "Advanced placement courses are demanding. Advanced placement courses that require designer handbags." Pete kept his voice neutral. Tanya's eyes narrowed. "Some of us care about appearances, Pete, about giving our children opportunities to move up in the world, like private viewings of Malibu properties." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken accusations. Jamie pushed away from the table first, making excuses about homework. Jenny followed slowly, her troubled gaze shifting between her parents. "I don't know what you think you know, but remember your place," Tanya finally said. "You clean offices for a living. I sell multi-million-dollar properties to people like Philip Lindsay." Pete watched her leave, her heels clicking on the floor with angry precision. His phone buzzed. Bitcoin had just crossed $47,000. In his study, encrypted hard drives held the keys to a fortune that could buy their house 100 times over. For now, he gathered the dishes and cleaned up quietly. He maintained his role as the unassuming husband, the modest maintenance supervisor, the father who couldn't afford private school. His patience, built through years of holding Bitcoin through every market crash, would serve him well. Later, the rain hammered against the windows of Tech Solutions Incorporated as Pete called in sick for the first time in 15 years. "Migraine," he explained to his supervisor, though the lie tasted bitter. A text from Wilson demanded immediate action. With her car packed and a storage unit on 5th Street full of boxes, the drive home felt surreal as Bitcoin notifications buzzed steadily. The market was volatile today, much like his personal life. Each alert reminded him of the secret fortune he had built and the patience he maintained, while others dismissed cryptocurrency as a fad. He pulled into his driveway 3 hours before his usual return time. Tanya's car was there along with an unfamiliar moving van, confirming everything Wilson's surveillance and his lawyer's investigations had suggested. Inside, the sound of drawers slamming echoed through their modest home. Pete stood in the entryway watching his wife of 18 years stuff designer clothes into expensive luggage he had never seen before. "You're home early," Pete said. Tanya's voice held no surprise, only irritation. She didn't stop packing. "Storage unit on 5th Street, Pete said quietly. "How long have you been planning this?" She paused, her manicured hands gripping a silk blouse. "You had me followed. You weren't exactly subtle," she said. Pete leaned against the doorframe. Philip Lindsay's Malibu mansion. The private viewings turned into private everything. "His name is Michael," Tanya said with a harsh laugh. "God, you can't even get that right." "Philip Michael Lindsay," she corrected bitterly. "Not that it matters. You're just the stupid janitor who couldn't even afford a decent anniversary gift last year." Movement in the hallway caught Pete's attention. Jamie stood there with a designer handbag clutched to her chest like armor. Behind her, Jenny pressed against the wall, her face a mask of misery. Pete's voice remained steady even as his world tilted. "They're coming with me," he declared. Tanya zipped her suitcase with violent finality. "We're moving to a real home with a man who understands ambition and can give you the life you deserve." Jenny's voice wavered. "Dad, don't." Jamie interrupted. "We're moving to their Malibu mansion. Why would we stay in this dump with a loser like you?" The words hit harder than any market crash. Pete looked at his daughters. Jamie's chin lifted in defiance, wearing clothes that probably cost more than his monthly salary. Jenny, unable to meet his eyes, clutched her packed bag tightly. "I'm done pretending," Tanya continued, her voice rising. "I'm done living this small, pathetic life while you waste time on your computer with your imaginary internet money. I'm done watching our daughters miss out on opportunities because you lack ambition, opportunities like those full of offers," she declared. Tanya corrected herself automatically, laughing bitterly. "You know what? Let's be honest for once. Yes, like those opportunities. He's everything you're not. Successful, powerful, and connected. He can get the girls into Malibu prep and introduce them to the right people." She gestured dismissively at their home. "This, Jenny," Pete said to his quieter daughter, "is this what you want?" Jenny's eyes filled with tears, but she did not move from her sister's side. "Mom says it's better for everyone," she whispered. "It is better," Jamie added with a brittle edge. "God, do you know how embarrassing it is to have a janitor for a father? Madison's dad owns 3 companies, and Blake's mom is a surgeon, while we're stuck with you." Pete watched silently as they carried their bags to the waiting van. His phone buzzed again with another price alert. The same patience that had helped him weather Bitcoin's early volatility now kept him maintaining the facade of a defeated husband. "The lawyers will contact you," Tanya said, pausing in the doorway. Her real estate agent smile twisted into something cruel. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You can't afford a fight anyway." The van's engine started. Through the rain-streaked windows, Pete watched his family load the last of their bags. Jenny hesitated at the van's door, looking back at the house one last time before Jamie pulled her inside with an impatient tug. "I hope you understand," Tanya said, pausing before she left. "This was never going to work long-term. Someone like you, you'll never be more than what you are," she added. Pete maintained his posture of defeat, shoulders slumped and eyes downcast, just like the invisible man he had played for years at Tech Solutions. He watched the van pull away, carrying his daughters toward a promised life of luxury. Only when the taillights disappeared into the rain did he allow himself to move. In his home office, computer screens glowed with crypto trading charts as Bitcoin's price stabilized after the day's volatility. Pete pulled out his phone and dialed a number he had prepared for this moment. In Dustin Christian's office, a professional voice answered. "It's Pete Lowe." He looked at the empty driveway through his window and said, "It's time. They've left." Dustin's tone shifted to alert concern. "Yes, with everything we predicted. Claims about private school opportunities, moving in with Lindsay, and attacks on your job status. It's perfect." Papers shuffled in the background. Every move was documented, just as planned. "Your Bitcoin holdings are secured," Dustin advised. Pete thought of the encrypted drives, the carefully distributed keys, and the transaction records proving his crypto investments predated his marriage. "She has no idea. Keep it that way," Dustin said. "Maintain your routine and let them think they've won. We'll move when everything is in place." Pete ended the call and sat in his quiet house. His maintenance supervisor's uniform hung on its usual hook, ready for tomorrow. He returned to his rounds at Tech Solutions, invisible as always, while Dustin's team prepared their response. His phone buzzed one final time. Not a price alert, but a text from Wilson. "You okay?" Pete looked around his modest home, thinking of the digital fortune secured behind layers of encryption and the years of patience that had brought him here. "Yes," Everything is exactly where it needs to be," he typed back. Later, Pete sat across from Dustin Christian in the lawyer's minimalist office, his maintenance uniform replaced by simple business casual attire. Multiple screens displayed cryptocurrency tracking software monitoring different aspects of his assets. Dustin said, "The first priority is protecting your Bitcoin holdings," as he adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses. "Tracy, would you walk us through the strategy?" Tracy, the forensic accountant, pulled her chair closer to the conference table. Her fingers flew across her laptop as she brought up complex spreadsheets and transaction histories. "Your initial Bitcoin purchases and mining activity predate your marriage by several years," she explained, turning her screen toward Pete. "We've documented every transaction from 2010 onwards," she continued. "The crucial factor is that Tanya actively dismissed and refused to participate in your crypto investments." Pete added, "I have emails from 2010 to 2015 where she stated she wanted nothing to do with my internet money scheme." Tracy's eyes lit up as she scanned the messages. "These are perfect. They establish a clear separation of assets. But we need to move quickly, as divorce proceedings often freeze assets." Dustin nodded while pulling up another document. "We've prepared a series of smart contracts that will secure your holdings through a complex series of digital transactions, completely legal and virtually impossible to trace without intimate cryptocurrency knowledge," he explained. "Will Tanya's lawyer understand any of this?" Pete asked, studying the technical diagrams. Tracy smiled slightly. "Most divorce attorneys still struggle with basic crypto concepts. They'll demand half of everything, but they won't know what everything actually entails." For hours, they worked methodically through Pete's digital fortune. Each Bitcoin was secured through transactions that made ownership claims nearly impossible without specific technical knowledge that Tanya had repeatedly refused to acquire. "Your maintenance job was actually perfect cover," Tracy observed while reviewing the final security protocols. "Nobody questions a janitor's modest lifestyle, and nobody looks twice at someone they consider beneath them." Tanya certainly did not. Pete recalled her final words. "You're just a stupid janitor. Her prejudice is our advantage," Dustin replied, closing his laptop. He advised, "Keep going to work. Maintain your routine. Let them think they know exactly who and what you are." Pete's phone buzzed with a text from Wilson. "Tanya's showing off her new life on social media. You should see this." The images showed Tanya and the twins at various high-end locations, tagged with #blessed and #livingmybestlife. Jamie featured prominently in designer outfits in front of Philip Lindsay's Malibu mansion, while Jenny's smiles seemed forced. Tracy said, "Speaking of social media, we should discuss digital surveillance. Everything they post becomes evidence: spending patterns, lifestyle changes, timestamps." Pete confirmed, "Wilson has been helping track their movements." Dustin advised, "Keep it up, but remember, we're playing the long game here. Let them get comfortable and think they've won. The more they flaunt, the stronger our case becomes." Pete nodded, thinking of the patience that had built his Bitcoin fortune. The same skills that made him invisible at Tech Solutions, observation, attention to detail, strategic timing, would now protect everything he built. "One more thing," Tracy added, pulling up a final document. "We should discuss your current cryptocurrency storage setup. Any security weaknesses could be exploited." They spent another hour reinforcing Pete's digital fortress, adding layers of protection to thwart any asset grab attempts. When they finished, Pete's fortune was secured behind walls of encryption that only he could access. "Perfect timing," Dustin said as he checked his phone. "My sources say Tanya has hired Stephen Fitzpatrick. He's aggressive but predictable, and he loves to portray the working spouse as an incompetent provider." "Let him," Pete replied, gathering his things. "I've been invisible my whole career. Why stop now?" As he left the office, Pete's phone lit up with another social media alert. Philip Lindsay had posted photos from a charity gala, with Tanya gleaming on his arm and the twins posing awkwardly in designer dresses. The caption read, "Family is everything." Pete saved the post to his growing documentation. His maintenance uniform waited in the car, ready for tomorrow's shift, as the same patience that turned pennies into millions now served a different purpose. At a quiet coffee shop, Benita Craig walked in carrying a designer handbag from her days as Philip Lindsay's wife. She spotted Pete immediately, the unassuming man in the corner nursing a simple black coffee. "You're exactly as Wilson described," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. Pete gestured to the waiting second cup. "Wilson mentioned you take it with cream. Former habits die hard." Benita's manicured fingers wrapped around the cup in a familiar pattern. "When I saw the social media posts, I knew I had to reach out. You mentioned there were others, 3 that I know of," she said while scrolling through saved articles. Sarah Winters, 2015. Caroline Chun, 2017. Maria Rodriguez, 2019. Each followed the same pattern. He found successful women with stable families looking for something more. Each story told of a wealthy CEO swooping in, promising a better life, and destroying a family. The children were always the key. Benita continued bitterly. "He loves playing the generous stepfather. Private schools, expensive gifts, social connections. By the time the mothers realize what's happening, the kids are too seduced by the lifestyle to leave." Pete said quietly, "My twins, Jamie and Jenny. I've seen the posts. Jamie is already deep in it with designer clothes, luxury cars, and private school parties. Jenny reminds me of my Alexandra, the quiet one who sees too much." Pete's phone buzzed with a notification from Jenny's school email. Her straight A's had been replaced by B's and C's. Alexandra was top of her class too, Benita noted, seeing his expression. "Now she's a lifestyle influencer with a $1,000 handbag addiction and hasn't spoken to me in 3 years. I won't let that happen to my girls," Pete said. "That's why I'm here," Benita added, leaning forward. She continued, "I have documentation, emails, bank records, witness statements from other families. Philip isn't as careful as he thinks. His pattern leaves traces." They spent the next hour reviewing her evidence. Each case revealed lavish gifts, private school promises, and gradual isolation from the original family. "Miss Craig," a new voice interrupted as Lester Andrews, Jenny's former math teacher, approached their table. "I thought that was you. I recognize you from the charity gala photos," Lester said. "Mr. Andrews," Pete replied, "what brings you here?" Lester produced a folder regarding Jenny's scholarship applications. She was on track for a full ride to several top universities with a revolutionary algorithms project, but now she'd missed 3 academic team meetings and the regional math competition. Lester's concern was evident. He told them Jenny was focusing on her personal brand instead. "This isn't the Jenny I know," Benita guessed. Pete accepted the folder, noting the steady decline in his daughter's academic performance. "Has she said anything else?" he asked. "Just that Mr. Lindsay is introducing her to better opportunities. Social media influencing, fashion blogging," Lester replied. He shook his head. "She had a real gift for computational mathematics, and now she's posting makeup tutorials." "Classic Philip," Benita muttered. "Alexandra was a promising violinist. Now she reviews luxury spa treatments." Pete's phone buzzed again with another social media alert. Jamie had posted new photos from Malibu Prep, posing with her new friends and matching designer outfits. The caption read, "So blessed to finally have the life I deserve. #blessed, #new money, #rich kids off Malibu." In one photo, Jenny appeared in the background, her school uniform impeccable, yet her expression distant, holding a calculus textbook like an afterthought. Lester confirmed, the isolation comes next. They'll start suggesting they limit contact with old friends and teachers, anyone who reminds them of their previous life. It's already happening. Jenny's best friend Maria was turned away at the gate. Pete saved the photos, adding them to his growing file of evidence. His lawyer's words echoed, "Let them get comfortable. Let them think they've won." "I should get back to work," he murmured, knowing the janitor act must continue. As he walked back to his car, another text came through from Wilson. Lindsay's showing off his crypto investments to the board, bragging about a new altcoin venture. Should I be worried? Pete smiled, thinking of his secured Bitcoin fortune. He replied, "Let them play with altcoins." He had learned long ago that patience and invisibility were far more valuable than flash and show. His navy blue coveralls had been his uniform for 15 years, and he remained the invisible man gathering invisible evidence. The initial divorce hearing transformed the county courthouse into a battlefield of contrasting narratives. Steve Fitzpatrick, Tanya's lawyer, arrived in an Italian suit that probably cost more than Pete's yearly maintenance salary. Dustin Christian's simple charcoal suit and wire-rimmed glasses maintained their image of modest means. "Your Honor," Fitzpatrick began, "this is a simple case of a mother seeking to provide better opportunities for her children." He continued, "My client, Tanya, has found herself trapped in a marriage with a man who lacks ambition beyond pushing a cleaning cart." Pete sat quietly in his Sunday best, a simple department store suit that emphasized his working-class status. Across the aisle, Tanya glittered in designer labels, with Philip Lindsay conspicuously present in the gallery behind her. "The facts are clear," Fitzpatrick said, spreading documents across the judge's bench. "Mr. Lowe has been content with minimal career advancement, no promotions, no additional education, no attempt to provide the lifestyle his family deserves." Meanwhile, Tanya had built a successful real estate career to elevate their standard of living. The judge, an older woman named Patricia Chun, studied the documents with an unreadable expression. "And the children? Thriving, Your Honor," Fitzpatrick said, gesturing to a series of social media prints. "Since moving in with Mr. Lindsay, they've enrolled in one of the state's top private schools, finally accessing the opportunities they deserve." Opportunities. Dustin's voice was quiet but clear as he approached the bench with his own documents. "School records, Your Honor. Jenny Lowe was on track for a full academic scholarship as class president and math team captain with a perfect GPA. Since moving to Malibu Prep, her grades have dropped dramatically. She's missed critical academic competitions and college preparation events." Fitzpatrick interrupted, exploring different interests. "The influencer industry." "The influencer industry won't pay for college," Dustin countered smoothly. He added, "Let's talk about who has been paying for everything else." Bank records appeared on the evidence screen. Years of mortgage payments, utility bills, grocery receipts, all from Pete's accounts. Credit card statements showed Tanya's escalating luxury purchases, all covered by Pete's steady payments. While Tanya claimed Mr. Lowe provided inadequately, Dustin continued, "These records show he has financially supported this family without fail. His minimal job had kept them stable, housed, and secure, while Tanya's real estate commissions were spent primarily on personal luxuries." Objection. Fitzpatrick stood. "My client's career success should not be used against her." Dustin corrected, "Not her success, her choices." Which brings us to the children's current situation. More documents appeared. Social media posts showing expensive shopping sprees, late-night parties, and missed school days. Jenny's declining grades contrasted sharply with her previous academic excellence, while Jamie's public persona focused entirely on a luxury lifestyle. "Mr. Lowe has never missed a parent-teacher conference," Dustin said, producing thick attendance records. He added, "He has maintained steady employment, provided consistent support, and prioritized his children's education over material displays." The judge studied the records carefully. Tanya was then asked, "Would you care to explain these credit card statements?" She shifted uncomfortably. "I was trying to maintain appearances for my real estate career. Image is everything in luxury properties," she replied. Judge Chun said, "Mr. Fitzpatrick, you've painted Mr. Lowe's job as inadequate, yet these records show consistent provision, active parental involvement, and stable housing. Meanwhile, your client's recent choices are concerning." Fitzpatrick attempted to recover, Mr. Lindsay's resources provide opportunity. Mr. Lindsay is not a party to this divorce, Judge Chun interrupted. Nor should children's access to education depend on their mother's romantic choices. Pete maintained his composed silence, watching Tanya's confident expression falter. Behind her, Philip Lindsay checked his phone repeatedly, frowning at some unseen message. Furthermore, Dustin added, we have evidence suggesting that this entire situation follows a concerning pattern. Vanita Craig entered the courtroom carrying her own file of documentation. Fitzpatrick's eyes widened slightly as he clearly recognized the implications of her presence. Your Honor, he interjected quickly, any testimony from Mr. Lindsay's previous relationships is irrelevant to this case. I disagree, Judge Chin replied. If there's evidence of a pattern affecting the children's welfare, I want to hear it. As Benita took the stand, Pete caught Jenny's eye in the gallery. She sat between Jamie and Philip, her school uniform replaced by expensive casual wear, her expression troubled. For a moment, her mask slipped, and he saw his studious daughter underneath the manufactured image. Trust the process, Dustin whispered, noting Pete's gaze. Everything is proceeding exactly as planned. Pete nodded slightly, maintaining his role as the simple maintenance supervisor, watching his family slip away. The same patience that had helped him build his hidden fortune would now help him protect something far more valuable, his children's future. Philip Lindsay's Malibu mansion buzzed with activity as crypto trading screens dominated his home office. Multiple monitors displayed plummeting charts, red candles cascading like digital dominoes. His own tech company's altcoin investments were evaporating by the millions. This can't be happening, he muttered, frantically typing commands into his trading terminal. Each attempted trade only deepened the losses. Everything was perfect. The indicators, the market signals. Tanya entered with a coffee tray, her designer outfit clashing with the domestic gesture. The girls are asking about the weekend plans, a Hamptons trip. Philip barely glanced up. Not now. These positions are killing me. But you promised Jamie she could meet those social media influencers. I said not now, he continued. His fists slammed against the desk, sending the coffee cup shattering to the floor. In the doorway, unnoticed, Jenny flinched at the outburst. She had seen this side of him emerging more frequently as the crypto markets turned against him. The charming CEO's mask was slipping to reveal something darker underneath. Jamie appeared beside her sister, clutching her phone. My followers keep asking about the yacht party. What should I tell them? Jamie asked. Tell them to go away. Philip shouted, his face reddening as another trading position liquidated. Your mother said this would be simple, a clean break from that worthless ex of hers. Now I'm bleeding millions while he remains nothing. He froze, something clicking in his mind, as he turned slowly to Tanya. His voice dropped dangerously low. You said he was worth nothing. A janitor, barely making minimum wage. Tanya protested, backing away slightly. Pete's just a maintenance supervisor. He's never been anything else. Then why aren't my algorithms working? Philip stormed toward her, gesturing at the screens. I built these trading models based on perfect market intelligence. The only wild card is the market. What exactly did your ex-husband do with computers? Jenny's mind flashed to memories of her father's home office, the constant hum of equipment, and the mining rigs. He used to mine digital currency, Tanya said uncertainly. Bitcoin, I think, but it was years ago. He wasted hundreds of dollars on it. I told him to stop mining Bitcoin. Philip's laugh held no humor. When exactly was this? 2010, maybe earlier. I don't know. I didn't pay attention to his stupid schemes. The color drained from his face. You idiot. Do you have any idea what early Bitcoin mining could be worth now? What are you talking about? Tanya demanded. He's a janitor. He barely makes minimum wage. Mom. Jenny's voice was quiet. Remember Dad's old equipment? The mining rigs that were always running. Philip said flatly, your ex-husband wasn't playing with computers. He was mining Bitcoin when it cost pennies. Tanya laughed, though uncertainty crept into her voice. Pete, my Pete, he pushes a cleaning cart for a living, while my tech company loses millions on altcoin trades. Philip's voice rose again. Your worthless ex-husband could be sitting on a fortune that would make this mansion look like a storage shed. The twins exchanged glances. Jamie's perfectly manicured hand lowered her phone. Once, she had not documented the moment for social media. Ginny's mind raced through years of memories, her father's patient explanations of cryptocurrency, his quiet confidence when their mother mocked his internet money, his insistence on maintaining their modest lifestyle. All those times he tried to teach us about Bitcoin, Ginny said softly. We thought he was just a loser. Philip finished mockingly. Like mother, like daughters. Tell me, Tanya, did you ever actually look at what your husband was building? Or were you too busy chasing obvious displays of wealth? Tanya's designer heels crunched on the broken coffee cup as she backed away from his anger. I don't believe it. I can't believe it. He's lying. He must be lying. Dad never lies, Ginny said. He just lets people see what they expect to see. Another screen flashed red. Another losing trade. Philip's altcoin portfolio was hemorrhaging value, while Bitcoin, the original cryptocurrency his company dismissed as outdated, held relatively stable. Get out, he said quietly. Philip, please. Tanya started. Get out. He swept his arm across the desk, sending papers flying. Take your worthless real estate license and your social climbing daughters and get out. I'm not bankrupting myself over some janitor's leftovers. Ginny grabbed her sister's arm, pulling her from the room as their mother's protests turned to sobs. Behind them, Philip's trading screens continued their merciless display of red candles and liquidated positions. In the hallway, Jamie finally found her voice. Ginny, what just happened? I think, Ginny said slowly, we all fell for the wrong kind of wealth. The courthouse buzzed with tension as Pete entered, still wearing his simple department store suit. The crypto crash had made headlines with high-profile tech companies facing massive losses. But Bitcoin, the original cryptocurrency, had weathered the storm. Dustin Christian sat at the defense table, his modest appearance belying the power of the evidence. Tracy Hurd, their forensic accountant, had arranged multiple screens for the digital presentation that would change everything. Your Honor, Dustin began as Judge Chun took her seat. Before we continue with custody deliberations, my client would like to address the court's concerns about his financial capacity to support his children. Stephen Fitzpatrick, looking less confident than in previous hearings, stood to object. Your Honor, we've already established Mr. Lowe's limited means as a maintenance supervisor. Actually, Dustin interrupted smoothly. We've established my client's admirable work ethic and consistent provision for his family. Now we'll establish exactly how he accomplished that. Tracy began her presentation, displaying blockchain transactions dating back to 2010, early Bitcoin mining operations, careful accumulation during price crashes, and strategic holding through bull markets. As these records show, Tracy explained, Mr. Lowe was an early adopter of cryptocurrency technology. His initial investment of a few $100s has grown to over $400 million in Bitcoin holdings. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Tanya, seated with her lawyer, stared at Pete with dawning horror. In the gallery, Jamie's perfectly curated social media persona cracked as she gripped her phone with trembling hands. Furthermore, Dustin continued, these assets were acquired before the marriage. He produced emails, texts, and witness statements showing Tanya's consistent dismissal of Pete's crypto activities. Your Honor, Fitzpatrick attempted to recover. If these assets exist, they should be considered marital property. I have hundreds of communications from Mrs. Doyle specifically stating she wanted no part of what she called worthless internet money schemes, Dustin countered. She repeatedly discouraged Mr. Lowe's involvement in cryptocurrency, mocked his interest in blockchain technology, and insisted he was wasting money. By her own choice, she removed herself from any claim to these assets. Benita Craig took the stand next, her testimony now carrying additional weight in light of Pete's revealed fortune. This was never about money for Pete, she explained to the court. I've seen Philip Lindsay destroy 3 other families with promises of wealth and status. But Pete chose to stay invisible, to protect not just his assets, but his children's values. 3 other women came forward, sharing similar stories of Philip's pattern. The court listened as they described how he targeted families, used children's materialistic desires as leverage, and discarded them once he destroyed their foundations. Jenny sat in the gallery, tears streaming down her face as the truth of her father's choices became clear. Every denied request for expensive clothes, every insistence on public school, every patient explanation of financial responsibility had been about building character, not about lacking means. Jamie remained frozen, her carefully constructed world of designer labels and social media influence crumbling as she realized she'd scorned real wealth for its flashy imitation. Judge Chin studied the evidence carefully before speaking. Mr. Lowe, would you care to explain why you maintain this facade? Pete stood, his modest suit and unassuming demeanor unchanged by the revelations. Your Honor, I learned early in my Bitcoin investment that true value isn't about flash and show. I wanted my daughters to understand that character and integrity matter more than material wealth. Unfortunately, I had to lose them to Philip Lindsay's false promises for them to learn that lesson. A lesson at their expense. Fitzpatrick tried one last attack. No, Pete replied quietly. It is a lesson about seeing beyond surfaces. I let them believe what they expected to see while building something more valuable than a Malibu mansion or a social media following. The judge nodded slowly. Mrs. Doyle, do you have anything to add? Tanya sat speechless, her designer outfit suddenly seeming as superficial as the lifestyle she pursued. Every dismissive comment about Pete's job and crypto interests reflected back at her now. I didn't know, she whispered. That was rather the point. Judge Chin observed dryly. The transition happened gradually. Ginny was the first to reach out, appearing at Pete's modest house one evening with her old calculus textbook, clutched like a peace offering. I withdrew from the influencer sponsorship, she said quietly as he opened the door, and I've been studying for the makeup exams. It's never too late to choose substance over show, Pete said, stepping aside to let her enter the unchanged living room that had once embarrassed her. They spent that evening reviewing mathematical concepts, falling back into their old pattern of patient explanation and eager learning. Ginny's phone remained untouched. Her designer clothes were forgotten as she rediscovered her passion for problem-solving. Jamie took longer to come around. Her social media following had grown addicted to luxury lifestyle posts, making the transition more challenging. But watching her sister's quiet return to authenticity sparked something in her. Dad, how did you do it? Stay true to yourself when everyone thought you were less. Come over, he said simply. Let's talk about real value. She arrived still wearing her expensive clothes, but her usually perfect makeup showed signs of tears. I've been so awful, so shallow. You've been misled by your mother, by Philip, by a world that worships appearances. But you're stronger than that influence, Pete gently corrected. Over the following weeks, both girls began spending more time at their father's house. Ginny threw herself back into academics, while Jamie discovered an interest in business fundamentals. I want to understand it, she explained, poring over basic investment concepts, not just the show of success, but how to actually build something real. Pete used their renewed interest wisely, setting up modest college funds that required them to match his contributions through part-time work. He upgraded their home, not to a Malibu mansion, but to a comfortable house with space for both girls to pursue their interests. Tanya's attempts to maintain her luxury lifestyle crumbled as Philip, facing multiple lawsuits from failed crypto investments, withdrew his support. Her real estate license proved inadequate to sustain her materialistic habits. The irony, she muttered one day, is that you were the wealthy one all along. "Money isn't wealth," Pete replied simply. "Our daughters finally understand that." He continued his job at Tech Solutions, now as head of maintenance, using his position to teach his team about investment opportunities and long-term thinking. The Bitcoin millionaire Janitor became a quiet legend in crypto circles, but to his daughters, he became something far more valuable. "Why didn't you tell us?" Jamie asked one evening, looking around their comfortable but modest new living room. "Money shows people's true colors," Pete explained. "I wanted you to develop character before wealth. Your mother and Philip showed you what happens when people value money over love." The twins enrolled in financial literacy classes at the community college. Jenny resumed her path toward a full scholarship, her mathematical gifts now enhanced by real-world understanding. Jamie surprised everyone by starting a small business, applying her social media skills to marketing but grounding them in authentic value. Tanya occasionally drove past their new home, wondering how she'd missed the quiet strength in the man she'd dismissed as just a janitor. But Pete was too busy helping his daughters plan their futures. Futures built on understanding the difference between true wealth and its flashy imitation. "You know," Jenny said one evening while working on a blockchain coding project as Jamie developed her business plan, "we were looking for success in all the wrong places." Pete smiled, watching his daughters build their own kinds of wealth, based on substance rather than show. The Bitcoin fortune that caused such drama remained mostly untouched. Its true value lay not in monetary worth, but in the lessons it taught about patience, authenticity, and the real meaning of wealth. Epilogue. 5 years later, the Tech Solutions Incorporated annual charity gala had transformed significantly. Pete Lowe stood near the entrance, no longer in maintenance coveralls, but in a well-tailored suit that was both high quality and understated. As head of the company's pioneering blockchain division, he'd finally allowed his expertise to become public, though his approach to wealth remained unchanged. "Dad," Jenny's voice carried across the room as she navigated through the crowd. At 21, she'd grown into a poised young woman with MIT credentials making waves in cryptocurrency development. She had interned at several top blockchain companies before joining her father's division, bringing fresh perspectives to their projects. "Your presentation on quantum-resistant blockchain architecture impressed the board," Pete said, accepting her quick hug. "Though I noticed you skipped the technical jargon and kept it accessible," Jenny smiled, adjusting her simple but elegant business attire. "I learned from the best. Speaking of which, have you seen Jamie? She's supposed to be here with her mentorship group." As if on cue, Jamie appeared, leading a group of teenage girls in professional attire. After her own experience with social media's false promises, she transformed her influencer skills into something meaningful. Her small business grew into a successful nonprofit teaching financial literacy and authentic leadership to young women from disadvantaged backgrounds. "Ladies," Jamie addressed her group, "remember what we discussed about real networking. It's not about impressing people with labels. It's about making genuine connections." She caught her father's approving nod, remembering how far she'd come from her designer-obsessed days. Wilson Moses, now Tech Solutions head of facilities management, a position Pete had recommended him for, approached with his daughter Maria. "Pete, the maintenance scholarship program you funded is changing lives. Maria's entire department at Stanford is talking about implementing similar initiatives." The scholarship was one of Pete's first public projects after his wealth became known. It ensured that maintenance and service workers had opportunities for career advancement. It was his way of honoring the dignity of the work that shaped his character. "Speaking of changes," Wilson lowered his voice, "heard anything about Philip Lindsay lately?" Pete hadn't needed to follow his ex-wife's former lover's downfall. It had been very public. After the crypto crash exposed his all-coin scheme, investigations revealed a pattern of fraudulent investments and market manipulation. His tech company collapsed, taking several smaller cryptocurrencies with it. Last Pete heard, Philip was facing federal charges while living in a modest apartment, his Malibu mansion long seized by authorities. Benita Craig's support group for families affected by his schemes is doing good work. Jenny commented that she had occasionally helped with their cryptocurrency education programs. The other women who testified about Philip's pattern found healing through Benita's organization. Their stories exposed a broader issue of predatory behavior in the tech industry. This led to significant cultural changes in several major companies. Across the room, Dustin Christian chatted with Tracy Hurd. Their expertise in crypto asset law made them leading figures in digital wealth management. They turned down Philip's desperate attempts to hire them during his legal troubles. They maintained the ethical standards that had attracted Pete to them in the first place. A young maintenance worker approached hesitantly. "Mr. Lowe, I just wanted to thank you. The blockchain courses you sponsored changed my life." Pete smiled, remembering his own journey. He still made time to mentor maintenance staff interested in cryptocurrency, teaching them the same patience and attention to detail that served him well. The sound of breaking glass drew attention to the entrance. Tanya stood there, looking out of place in last season's designer wear, now slightly worn. Her real estate license hadn't survived the scandal of her association with Philip Lindsay. Her attempts to rebuild her luxury property business had failed as former clients associated her with Philip's fraudulent schemes. "Mom still doesn't get it," Jamie murmured to her sister. After multiple attempts to reconcile with her daughters only when she needed money, Tanya had shown she hadn't learned from her mistakes. Her occasional appearances at public events were more about seeking connections to rebuild her status than genuine change. "Mrs. Doyle," the event security said quietly, "this is a private function. I'm Pete Lowe's ex-wife." She insisted, her voice carrying that familiar demanding tone. "Surely that counts for something." "It counted for everything," Pete said quietly to his daughters, until she decided it counted for nothing. Jenny touched her father's arm. "The scholarship recipients are waiting for your speech about building genuine value." Pete nodded, leaving his past behind as he moved toward the podium. His Bitcoin fortune had grown substantially over the years, but he maintained his philosophy of modest living and genuine contribution. The Maintenance Scholarship Fund, blockchain education programs, and support for ethical cryptocurrency development became his legacy. Lester Andrews, Jenny's former math teacher, now ran a STEM program funded by Pete's foundation, identifying promising students who might otherwise be seduced by superficial measures of success. He helped several young people discover their true potential beyond social media fame or luxury lifestyles. As Pete began his speech, he looked out at the audience. His daughters sat together, their success built on understanding the difference between real and superficial value. Behind them, a new generation of maintenance workers studied blockchain technology, carrying forward his belief in the dignity of all work and the importance of patient, careful building. The crypto world had evolved dramatically, but Pete's principles remained unchanged. His quiet influence spread through the industry, promoting ethical development and genuine innovation over quick profits. The Bitcoin millionaire janitor had become something more, a symbol of authentic success and principled wealth management. Later that evening, in their comfortable but not ostentatious home, the family gathered for their weekly dinner tradition. Jenny worked on quantum blockchain protocols on her laptop, while Jamie reviewed applications for her mentorship program. Pete watched his daughters with quiet pride, remembering the materialistic teenagers they'd once been. "Did you see Mom's new social media posts?" Jamie asked, showing her phone. Tanya had been documenting her attempts to rebuild her empire, but her followers had dwindled as people recognized the hollow nature of her prosperity gospel. "I heard she tried to pitch a reality show about her comeback story," Jenny added, "but no networks were interested." Pete just nodded, long past feeling anything but mild sadness for his ex-wife's inability to understand true value. Her alliance with Philip Lindsay had cost her not just material comfort, but something far more precious, the respect and trust of her daughters. Philip himself had become a cautionary tale in the crypto world. His attempt to manipulate markets and build wealth through deception led to stronger regulatory frameworks. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who mocked Pete's worthless Bitcoin investment ultimately helped make the crypto market more secure through his failures. The weekly family dinner tradition had become sacred. Sometimes Wilson and Maria joined them. Other times, Benita Cray brought participants from her support group to see what healthy family dynamics look like. The conversations ranged from blockchain technology to business ethics to personal growth, always centering on the principles Pete had lived by even when no one knew his true worth. "You know what's funny?" Jamie said, helping clear the dishes. "I have fewer social media followers now than when I was posting about luxury brands and private jets. But the ones I have actually care about financial literacy and authentic success," Jenny said, looking up from her laptop. "Quality over quantity. Just like Dad taught us about Bitcoin mining back when we were too blind to see it." Pete smiled, remembering those early days as he tried to teach us about cryptocurrency. The lessons had finally taken root, not just about digital assets, but about patience, authenticity, and the true meaning of value. Outside, the city lights twinkled differently from the view at Philip's seized Malibu mansion. Their home was comfortable and chosen for its proximity to work and family, not for status. Pete had never fully deployed his wealth in visible ways, preferring to use it for education, opportunity creation, and sustainable change. The Bitcoin millionaire janitor's story became legend in crypto circles, but its true impact was in the lives changed, the lessons learned, and the values preserved through testing times. Pete's patient, invisible accumulation of wealth transformed into a legacy of authentic success and genuine character that would influence generations to come. As the evening wound down, Pete received one last text from Wilson. "Your maintenance scholarship just changed another life today. Some kids from the old neighborhood got accepted into the program." Pete replied with a simple thumbs up, knowing that somewhere another quiet worker was learning the lessons he'd lived. True wealth isn't in what you display, but in what you build, and character, once tested and proven genuine, becomes its own kind of fortune. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.